We are what our thoughts have made us. So take care about what you think. Words are secondary. Thoughts live, they travel so far. Swami Vivekananda, in his book, The Complete Works of Swami Vivekananda, and perhaps in volume 2, he asks an interesting question, a question about gravity. He asks, did gravity exist before Newton discovered it? Was it sitting somewhere in his brain to be discovered? The question is profound in a sense that how do we gain knowledge? How do we accumulate knowledge? The moment we say accumulate, we have this sense of putting something inside our brain. But this is not how knowledge works. Knowledge is opening up one's mind. So you have to have that inquisitiveness, the curiosity of how things work, and you keep your mind open and not close with whatever you have till now. Newton, with his curiosity, kept the question alive in his mind and let ideas flow through, let ideas run freely through his mind. That's how he is able to come up with the principle of gravity. That is what can happen when we keep our minds open and open to new ideas and new knowledge. Me being a medical doctor, I was skeptical when I first had this copy of You Can Heal Your Life from Louise Hay in my hand. One of my clients presented it to me in 2006. And I did not open the book thinking that, I don't believe in this. I believe in science. I believe in medicine. I know how body works. And what is this book all about? How can you heal your life? Right? It is the job of doctors. So my mind was not open. But after reading this book with an open mind, it completely changed my life. So today, in another session of Book Your Health, we are going to discuss Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life. My name is Dr. Suresh. I'm a medical doctor. I'm a practicing dietitian and a life coach. I'm an entrepreneur, public speaker, and I train corporates, dietitians, and holistic practitioners. And I'm a barefoot runner too. So what is this book about? The book is about healing through mind-body principles. So let's see what's there in the book. So in the contents, the book is divided basically into two parts. In the first part, she talks about what she believes in, what her core philosophy is, and this forms the crux of the book. And some points to my philosophy and how to go about the book, she explains. So first go through the book completely as if you are reading a novel. Then come back and go through each chapter slowly and start doing all the exercises. It is one of the first self-help books with proper exercises to do. And the exercises are very simple but very, very effective. And in part 2, she discusses about what exactly is the problem with our body or life as such. So here she connects everything with everything in our life, starting from our health, our thought process, our relationships, our finances, because this is where she offers a complete holistic perspective of life. We doctors, we see body as separate and thought as separate, and finances has got nothing to do with that, and relationships has got nothing to do with either our health and relationships. So here she amalgamates all these things and talks about how these things in fact impact overall wellness of an individual. That's why she says it is healing. And in the third part, she gives you specific exercises and the powerful tool she employs to bring about change in people's lives is through affirmations. So here she took up basically 5 important aspects, that is relationships, work, success, prosperity, and the body. How we can heal all these 5 aspects to live a fulfilled and successful life. Coming to author, who is Louise Hay. She was born in October 8, 1926 in Los Angeles, and she is basically a speaker, professional speaker. She modeled for some part of her life, and she is a Christian counselor in a church, and she worked like that also. She worked in a diner as a waitress. So we'll come to all of that, and she lived for almost like 90 full success, joyful and fulfilled years, and she passed away very recently in 2017. Now, when you say you can heal your life, what healing is? According to dictionary.com, to make healthy, whole or sound. That is restoring of health or free of ailment. So to bring an end or conclusion as conflicts between people or groups, usually with strong implication of restoring former enmity, settle, reconcile. So healing, it doesn't always mean healing of the body. Healing of any sort, whether it is relationships or whether it is your professional life or it your finances, whatever it is, there is a trauma, there is some kind of friction, and we are supposed to bring it back. So the book speaks about basically healing all these aspects. So as I said, the first part, she points out 16 things. This forms the crux. Rest of it is all theory and some exercises. But if we get to know the essence of these 16 points, it will clearly give us what she wanted to convey and what Louis' philosophy of life is. First one, life is really very simple. What we give out, we get back. I mean, we have known this saying for quite some time now. We all hear that, but we don't know what is the practical implication of that in day-to-day life, right? So whatever we give in, so if you offer resentment to the world, that's what you get back. If you offer love to the world, that's what you get back. Second thing, the universe totally supports us in every thought we choose to think and believe. So I think it is Henry Ford who said, whether you think you can or you cannot, you are always true. So that's what she echoes here. That means the universe, I mean, some people call it God or some people call it nature or whatever name you want to call it. But whenever you are giving out or sending out a thought and whatever we strongly believe, that we'll get definitely without for sure. The universal power never judges or criticizes us. That means we think that if we make a mistake, right, we feel sorry for whatever we did and we feel ashamed of us. But what she essentially says is, I mean, she took the God concept out of here. She says that universe, because everything that is out there is nothing but pure potentiality. She calls that universal powers, and some people give it a name and call God. So the universal power never judges us, and most of us have foolish ideas about who we are and many rigid rules about how life ought to be lived. So we create certain rules for ourselves, and we try to live according to those rules, and some of the rules are stifling. Deep inside, even though we know that these rules are like stifling us and suffocating us, we cannot let go of that. So what she says that these are some foolish ideas that we hold on to. And next thing is about how the brought up creates an impact in one's life. So when we are very little, we learn how to feel about ourselves and about life by the reactions of the adults around us. So the childhood is very important period of one's life, and whatever we hear and whatever we observe, whatever we experience during childhood, they define who we are going to be in our future. When we grow up, we have a tendency to recreate the emotional environment of our early home life. So most of you might have observed when you are kids, you look at the way your parents behaved, your parents talked, and how they try to control or command or nudge you to do certain things. But once you reach the age of your parents, you suddenly realize that you also recreating the same kind of environment. You also try to emulate them. So that is the power of observation or the experience has on one's developmental process. So, however, I would not blame our parents for this. So, here she explains a very important thing. We assume that our parents are perfect when we are kids, and we take their words for granted. But when we grow up, when we look back, why did our parents behave in such a way? Right? The answer is very simple. Because their parents, our parents behaved that way with our parents, right? So their example was bad, and whatever they learned they passed on to us. So that's why she says there is no point in finding fault with our parents. And she says that I believe that we choose our parents. That's pretty much true, and there are so many books written over that. And we need not go completely philosophical, but if we think even logically, that sounds true, that most of us we choose parents specifically for certain lessons that we need to learn. And the 2 points that I am deeply connected with are: the point of power is always in the present moment, right? Eckhart Tolle wrote a wonderful book about the same concept, the power of now, how to live in the moment. And the point of power is always in the present moment means most of us are worried about what is going to happen in the future. We are always worried about tomorrow, how tomorrow is going to be. Or we carry the baggage from the past and we are always depressed and feel bad, and we always carry that mental and emotional baggage. And it feels so heavy, we cannot move freely. So most of the people, either we live in the past or we worry about the future, but we never realize the power of a present moment. So the point of power is always in the present moment. So if you make this moment more meaningful, right, you can create the life you want to. So this is a very, very important point. So we forget to live in the moment and we are missing the moment. But if we acknowledge the present moment as an opportunity, the current moment, the present as an opportunity, then change is possible. And the only thing that we are ever dealing with is a thought, and a thought can be changed. This is an extraordinary revelation for me in 2007, that everything that we are able to do or we are doing stems from a thought. And based on that thought comes from our past experiences. If we can change our thought, right, and because this thought is creating the action, and that action results in the experience we are about to experience, and that thought can be changed. So it is in our hands. Believe it or not, we do choose our thoughts. We choose our thoughts based on our experience. Say for example, if touching a hot object will harm us is an experience, right? We never touch that. So similarly, if there was a painful experience in our childhood and we believe it to be 100% true, every time a similar situation comes, we fail to act, thinking we are bringing the same experience. But if we learn how to handle that situation, right, that new thought process, if we give space to that new thought process, and things will be manifested in a different way. The innermost belief for everyone I have worked with is always, I am not good enough. Most of the people, they berate themselves and they feel like victims, and they think that they are not enough, because every time we do a mistake, right, there are so many people to criticize us, laugh at us and mock us, but there are very few people who come forward and say, okay, that's fine, move on. We see very few people talking to us. So for all the suffering that human beings are going through, the problem is everyone thinks that they are not good enough. And I find that resentment, criticism, guilt, and fear cause more problems than anything else. Right? So, holding on to these negative thoughts suffocates people, and we can change our attitude towards the past. Whatever has happened, no matter how resentment you show towards the people who perpetrated crime against you or like abused you or whatever it is not going to change the fact that it has happened. But you can change your attitude towards the past, right? So carrying resentment towards them, or carrying guilt for whatever has happened, or carrying that fear that it might happen again, all these things are not going to help you in any way. But once you change your attitude towards the past, you are releasing that past and you are trying to create something new. You are giving space to create something new. So to do that, we must be willing to forgive. Okay, even if you don't read the complete book, I think even in Kindle free edition, whatever free chapters are there, I think the first chapter is there in the free edition. So go through these 15-16 points. There she simply explains what the philosophy is all about, what the book is all about, what she learned during her life. I mean, her life is roller coaster, and we are going to see that in a few minutes. And basically, this is the crux of what she wanted to convey. And all disease comes from a state of unforgiveness. If you are unable to forgive the perpetrators of violence or crime or pain, it's not going to affect them in any way, but you are paying price for some others' mistakes. So let them go, forgive them, and move on. And in second chapter, a session with Louise, she talks in depth about whatever one is experiencing. What is the problem? Where does it come from? Whether it is true? What do we do now? And once we decided to change, there is a resistance to change. So how do we overcome that? How to change and how to build the new experiences or new life. So here she explains all the theory and with wonderful examples and her client stories, her personal stories. She explains the problem very clearly in this section. And in the third section, she, as I said, she uses the tool of affirmations, okay, and constant self-talk and approving of oneself. So how do we heal our relationships, problems at our work, and how to achieve success and how to achieve prosperity? And most important of all is the body. How do we heal our body? Because whatever thoughts one carries, that thought, if it is toxic, it becomes toxic and expresses in our body as sickness. That is one real insight that I had when I first time read this book. And she actually connects all the emotions with all the sickness in different body parts that is given in the list. And in the conclusion, she narrates the story. I mean, we think that, okay, whatever she is writing, it is another self-help book with a rosy picture and all the stuff. But if you, in that, I mean, this is where I was like completely bowled over after reading her story. So that is the reason why whenever I gift this book to someone, I say, first read the story and then read the book. Then you will have a newfound respect for whatever she is trying to convey. Because if you don't read her story and start with the first chapter, it may look like, okay, this is too good to believe. I mean, too good to be true. It's okay. It's difficult to believe. I mean, how can these things simply happen? Right? But if you look at her story, her biological parents divorced when she was just 18 months old. And she has to live in a foster home for a few days or few months. And again, her mother, unable to support her, had to marry another person. And that person is very cruel and abusive. And she was raped at the age of 5 by a neighbor and by her neighbor. And he got sentenced for 15 years. That's fine. I mean, how she suffered with that trauma also she explains in that. and she ran away from home, unable to cope up with this abusive father, who used to abuse her physically, psycho-emotionally, and even sexually also. So she has to run away from her home at the age of 15, and she used to work as a what do you say, a waitress in a diner, and she had multiple relationships because she is love starved, and anyone who is kind enough, and she used to have a relationship with that. And at the age of 16 she is pregnant and gives birth to a baby girl, and she had to leave her baby when she is just 5 years old. And then she moves from Chicago to New York, starts her career as a model, and she flourishes in her career, and get to know a man, got married, and they almost lived for 14 years together. And finally, again, they got divorced, and her husband said he is in love with another woman. So what she says is, I am the victim, and I continue to emit the vibrations of victimhood. Right? I am not totally healed unless and otherwise I look into my patterns, right? My thoughts, I clean up my thoughts, and I maintain my emotional hygiene. I keep attracting these kind of things. So she goes to a church and volunteers over there, and she goes to Maharshi Institutes, learns transcendental meditation, and starts her life as a counselor. Then suddenly she was diagnosed with cancer, the vaginal cancer. And she says why it is only a vaginal cancer. So whatever she has like experienced throughout her life, and all the abuse and all the hatred, the resentment towards her body, so she says that it manifested in vaginal cancer. But she refused to take any conventional therapy like radiation or chemotherapy. And the next 6 months, because she is talking about mental health and patterns and personality, she wanted to test her theory on herself, and she did everything she could, starting from fruit reflexology, starting from eating natural foods, consulting a dietitian, and meditation, cleansing, colon cleansing, and detox, all this stuff. And after intensive 6 months practice of this holistic modalities, she went to her doctors again, and they said that there is no trace of cancer in her body. Okay, so whatever she wrote in this book is completely her story, and whatever she learned, and whatever she practiced with her clients, and all the testimonials and results she experienced with her clients. So this is about the 4 parts of the book, and the reason why I choose to review this book and introduce this book is there are some key takeaways. So this book opened my thought process to new learning, new possibilities, and I would say this is one of the first self-help books. I mean, I used to read a lot of philosophy till then, 2007, and used to read Ramana Maharshi, J.K. Osho, Swami Vivekananda, and all this stuff. But once I read this book, and once I opened my mind to my scientifically tempered, because when it comes to healthcare, I used to follow these scientific principles, and whatever I learned in my medical college. So but reading this book and applying these principles on my clients, it really opened new possibilities for my practice and for my self growth. So this book teaches the importance of keeping our minds open, and the takeaways are the power of thought and self love. So often we miss this very sorely in our life. So we think that thought doesn't have any effect on our body, in our relationships and all this stuff. No, our thoughts create our reality. So the book teaches the importance of taking responsibility for self. Don't blame others, no matter how cruel and how unfair the world is. All the hardships in life are opportunities to grow. They are trying to teach something. So finally, you can heal your life. The key message is you are the creator of your life. So thank you very much for listening to the end, and please like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you with another book soon. Thank you.